Director Betty Thomas.
Paramount, Sherry saw the film, and I remember her coming out of one of the first screenings where Paramount, who was going to distribute the film, and she came out to me and she said, "Sweetie, 100 million, no question, 100 million." And I was like, "Sherry, don't say things like that. You know, it's like, that's like a death thing to say something like that." She goes, "No, I'm not kidding you. Believe me, I've seen a lot of films. 100 million, no question."
What did Private Parts total out at? You never ever get the figure.
I did it 20 times. It's $85 million.
That's what it did?
Yeah.
That's good. I'm a big fan.
Shut up. And I didn't get the 85 million yet.
Yeah, he thinks that's in your pocket.
All right.
Producer Ivan Reitman.
I thought the film did well, but not, overwhelmingly great. I thought for how good this movie was, it actually underperformed what it deserved.
Judith Regan has her own theory.
I think Howard collaborates better with women because he's gay. I actually think that Howard is a gay man trapped in a straight man's body. And Howard works with women, at least he worked with me, the way I've worked with most of my gay authors over the years. He has a profound fear of women. I think he probably has a fear that they're going to eat him. And because of that, I think he listens to them. And I think that he probably doesn't have the same kind of relationship with men because he doesn't fear them as much. I don't know if his mother instilled this in him or if it's just innate, but I do think that he honestly fears women. He's afraid of you. And here's this big, tall guy who's at least 2 feet taller than I am, who would just listen to me. And it was just incredible. But, that's a very, very unusual thing. And I have to say, for the most part, most of the men that I've worked with over the years, they're either gay or they're just wildly, wildly artistic and creative. And, you can take your pick with him.
But my life isn't bad at all. I'm still on the air. I've got my kids, and I've got Allison. Allison! She's the best friend I could ever have.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Quite Frankly, featuring myself, your host, Fillmore, a.k.a. Jim Fix. With me is my co-host with the most, Sam.
Hi.
And today we have a little special treat for you. We're going to be going back over the Hail Mary last-ditch interview Howard did with Charlie Rose on March 28th of 1997, which was in week 4, the week 4 weekend of Private Parts before it completely tumbled out of theaters altogether. So basically it opened up on March 7th officially, but the studio counted the Thursday screenings towards the weekend grosses so that they could have the number one and say they had the number one film that weekend. But Jungle to Jungle, the Tim Allen film, actually did, based on Friday, Saturday, Sunday box office, beat Private Parts. And we found a clip. This is an amazing clip of Lolita Davidovich, who starred in that Tim Allen film, on Conan O'Brien, talking about it because Howard had just done Conan the week of the 13th and lied about it. Basically didn't bring it up. And he must have escaped because he didn't want to be there, and he didn't want to be confronted because he knew she was in that film.
And he's scared of women, so, a hot girl confronting him over his lies would not happen.
Yes, a hot Canadian ginger. So we're going to play that one first, everybody. 1 second. Let me see if I got this right. No, 1 moment. Okay. So she gets on, she kisses Conan. This is old Conan.
Oh, God, he looks so young.
Yeah.
On Rosie's show.
The number one movie, I'm sorry.
I'm really sorry.
So glad Howard didn't do that. Yeah.
I was really disappointed.
He was going to stay, and then he had to go.
Well, he's a little scared because, to set the record straight, he's including Thursday night's box office. So actually, he's not number one.
Are you messing with Howard Stern? Is that what I understand?
No, I'm just setting the record straight.
You don't want to mess with Howard Stern. Let me set you straight right now, okay? He will sick the Jackie puppet on you. It will find you, and it will seek you out and destroy you, all right?
Well, where is he?
You'll see. When you're driving home tonight.
So there we have it, right? Like that's ballsy of any kind of Hollywood actress to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, especially back then, because how he would rag on you for days on end. But interestingly enough, she got away with that scot-free, and we didn't even remember that clip or even hearing about that feud because it never happened because he never bothered to address it.
Sorry, I'll do that. Sorry, go ahead. I got that one mixed up. But yeah, it was something that Benjamin talked about on the actual review we did of the Private Parts movie, but there you had proof because I knew that there was a Letterman appearance where he said the same thing and someone called him on it then, or I believe it was the studio that maybe Fox had the Tim Allen film, and then they said that and they press released it. So there was some media coverage about that. Anyway, so they cheated. So to give you a comparison, everybody, in week one it made 14.6 million the first weekend. It dropped 40% to 8.7 million in the second week. 50% drop, which 40% is not an uncommon drop. For the second week. Week 3, it was 50% down to 4.4 million. And by week 4, which was this weekend of the interview with Charlie, it had only made 2.4 million and then disappeared from theaters completely. So they were expecting it to get like 30, 40 million that opening weekend and then hope for the same or less percentage drop and then make most of their money back, but they just never did.
Right.
So yeah.
It's kind of like faking a disability to get more time on a test and still flunking it anyway.
Yeah. So hold on for a second. I'm going to add a few of these things here. Add to playlist. Okay. And 1 second. Because there's a couple clips that that illustrate our sort of... They color the argument better than we could. Hold on, bullshit. Okay, and the last bit is bullshitting about say that 3 times fast. Private parts.
All right.
Yeah, and okay, I got rid of those, and let me make sure I put them all there. Playlist. Okay, so this is him bullshitting about the profit of private parts well after the fact.
What did Private Parts total out at? You never ever gave the figure.
I gave it 20 times. It's $85 million.
That's what it did?
Yeah.
That's good. I'm a big fan.
Shut up. And I didn't get the 85 million yet.
Yeah, he thinks that's in your pocket now.
Right.
No, he doesn't. Nobody said it. No one said that. And I didn't get the 85 million. What?
Right. I didn't get the 85 million, and he wasn't putting up the money for the film. Why would he fucking get it? First of all, and second of all, he was adding video sales to the actual box office. No one says with videos and with rentals it made this much.
Right.
People talk about box office, what it actually made, not rentals. So
does he really think that person thought when you go buy a movie ticket and stand in line that $5 or $10 is going right to Brad Pitt after the show? Like, I mean, what?
He's there with an attaché case collecting the box office himself, or he's got a money belt.
He's making the rounds like Santa Claus to every single movie theater.
But he's wearing the Fight Club bathrobe because Howard's so enamored with that. So there's that clip, and then this next clip is this is from the History of Howard Stern, where Ivan Reitman comes in and discusses why he thought it went badly. So
I think there was a kind of misunderstanding, and partially because of the marketing and just partially because of the animal that it is, that it felt too much like a radio documentary. Like, it's this documentary about this guy who's on the radio and he's kind of controversial, and it felt smaller than the movie really is.
Now the thing is, that was Ivan Reitman, 2010 History of Howard Stern. There's
what
way
is
more
the song in the background?
Oh, I don't know. It's probably some low rent Red Hot Chili Peppers B-side or something. I don't know, or imitation. But there's another clip that I'm not going to play, unfortunately, because I'm going to try to put it in the intro. And it's a Judith Regan clip that you guys will fucking love. I'd love to play it now, but the volume's a little unmixed, and it's going to bust your eardrums if I play it now without changing it. So without further ado, we're going to get started. Anything before we get started, Sam?
So I do have to say, I was at a dinner party a few months ago, and my girlfriend's husband said when he lived in New York City that he was DJing in clubs around the city, and he was a regular DJing at, I forgot what the club's name was, actually. I should have wrote that down. But the club, the owner of the club said, listen, this promoter came in saying that he wants people to stand in line to get tickets for private parts, the premiere, to make it look like the line is more full than it is, because I guess they were panicking that there wasn't going to be enough people, that it wasn't going to look filled out enough. So whoever was a part of the Stern camp or the movie or whatever was just going around to clubs and asking owners to ask people, their employees, in droves of people, to make it look like it was more happening than it was.
Yes.
And he was paid, I think, a flat, I'm not sure if it was a flat rate or an hour rate, but I think he said flat rate, like $50 or something, which he was a broke DJ in New York City at the time, to just stand in line with his friends and make it look happening.
And
I was like
seat
shut
fillers.
the front door. I'm like, get out of here. So I think during the dinner party, and I was a little tipsy, I think I called you. I was like,
Yeah,
you're
you
never
did, you
going to
did.
believe this.
Well, you sent some videos, like you recorded some clips of him, and then you sent them, and I go, "This is fantastic. We need to get this guy." But I mean, the ultimate information is he gave it to you. Is what basically they wanted. They had a budget, or they had some money that they decided they're going to spend on making it look happening and forcing it. Now, there's a guy on our YouTube channel with reference to the last episode we did, which was the Private Parts infomercial, or sorry, Miss America infomercial, and I guess we did discuss Private Parts a little bit in the episode. But he says this, Patrick J. The MTV Private Parts premiere was the nail in Howard's coffin. It was outside in New York City, and it had less than half of the fans as you see for Miss America. That daily 5-hour promotion bored the fans. I knew that the movie was going to bomb before it came out because of that premiere. Now, add his waltzing with Vanna White on Wheel of Fortune, his Kermit the Frog joke he repeated in interviews, and trying to appeal to non-fans for the Private Parts promotion. Do a video on the Private Parts promotion and why the movie failed. Well, that's what we're doing right now. And there's a few more.
Was that Patrick J. who wrote that comment?
Yeah,
he's a great fan. He is.
And he also wrote something else here. I think he comes up with stuff and then forgets about it, or comes back and writes different comments each time. So in this one, he says, "Please do a video on Butt Bongo VHS tape. This was the big project after the Channel 9 show. We got his show in Cleveland then, and this project was promoted day and night, 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. It's horrible. It's probably on YouTube. It is, but I'm going to get a better quality." He said, I'd say the only two projects he ever promoted his career that were quality and decent were the Private Parts book and Miss Howard Stern beauty pageant pay-per-view. I don't remember that beauty pageant, actually, and I'm sure that's available to find, but the Butt Bongo one is awful.
Probably lots of fake heterosexuality in the beauty pageant.
I'd say so, too. And there's another person here, Jay Horvath, who said, "Is that a New York thing to say wait online? Born and raised in the Midwest, I always waited in line." Now, I believe it's correct in line grammatically, and but I've used both, and I think it might be a New York thing. Because, I mean, if you're standing literally online, you're online. But
it's one of those things, I don't know if I say that or not. I can't. I guess if it comes up and I say online, I wouldn't catch myself. So I'll have to be cognizant of it, but I'm not sure if I do that.
Okay, there's another there's another person here, Alvin Cecil Cologne. He said, "Holy crap, I remember seeing this. Yes, this played really late at night. I watched this a billion times. If I were to give you guys a critique, it would be that this is 100% a parody. I don't think it was ever supposed to be taken seriously. Sam, you're right about that cringeworthy facial hair. Yes, we're aware it was not meant to be taken seriously, but we just could not refrain from going through it because it was so unbelievably bad." So anyway, so they were desperate for some kind of big, huge opening. They never got it, and they knew they had a bomb on their hands. So with the rentals, they probably made their money back, but just maybe a little bit more in selling it to certain networks later on with editing. But I don't think and this wasn't the one to bankrupt Rysher, but it was one of the films that they were banking on was be a huge Wayne's World thing. So ready to go?
Ready.
Okay, now let's check this out. Sound all right?
So 90s.
Oh, yeah. And Charlie, by the way, another Me Too victim.
I know.
It's amazing how much he knows. He knows these guys. Obviously, people we flipped.
He has a unique style. He makes tons of money, and he is a force in broadcasting. And now,
Right away.
I am pleased to have on this broadcast Howard Stern. You have been on this tour now promoting this movie. Critics love it. Across the board.
I'm not used to this kind of attention and praise. Making this movie for me was truly a labor of love. 4 years making this movie. And I wanted to make a movie that was truly the story of my life. I didn't want to make an over-the-top comedy. And by that I mean I had been sickened by what I've seen recently. I'm a big fan of film. I didn't like the Coneheads.
Okay, so go ahead. I knew you were going to say something. We both had something of that. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, right away he goes with makes tons of money, which had to piss him off.
Oh, yeah.
But he reluctantly did not say, I don't make tons of money, because obviously he does. Yeah. And then he goes into that rehearsed, scripted, I hate comedy, I want to make this because of this. It's almost like every single promotion, and this is why fans got so sick of this, it's because he says the same selling spiel every time.
Yeah. You got it. Yeah. Well, he brings up, there's two people he brings up around the same time. From 94, 93 onwards, he talks about Dan Aykroyd and mentions him in this one as well. But Coneheads was a bomb. It cost all kinds of money, and it was a Lorne Michaels production. He's right about one thing. A lot of the SNL projects failed around this time. There was It's Pat, Stewart saves his family. Blues Brothers was later, Blues Brothers 2000, I think. But the very first SNL film was Blues Brothers, made a shitload of money, but that was 82 or so. And then Wayne's World, both of which Lorne Michaels produced, which made like 183 million worldwide. It was massive. So he had a chip on his shoulder about all the bad SNL films, but ultimately, I mean, they were bombs. So was his. Not as much as those films, but they might have made films for 11 million and they made nothing. But he made a film for probably 40, 50 million with promotion, and it didn't make money either. So he just as badly bombed as they did.
Right.
So anyway, poor Dan Aykroyd, and he'll say later on, you'll hear Dan Aykroyd. So hold on.
Oh my goodness.
Was not a fan of these Saturday Night Live guys who make these sketch
Michael Myers and those people.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the thing that appealed to me. I wanted to make a comedy that people had some good belly laughs, but also got a real story, something that was fun, but yet there was some basis in reality. And I
some basis. It's all science fiction. Now, did you have a gut laugh at any time watching Private Parts? Ever?
I said for our deconstructed video we did with Benjamin, the only laugh I got is when that he was playing frisbee in the park and it hit him in the face a bunch of times, and that it was a cheap laugh. Mm-hmm. That was it.
That was it.
I mean, I got laughs I wasn't supposed to from its appearance.
Right, absolutely.
My story was kind of like a Rocky story. Here was the loser, the geek, the nerd. His father told him he was a moron. And suddenly he has this dream to be on radio.
Go ahead.
Rocky doesn't have a father in any of those films. And he is nothing like Rocky.
Well, first of all, Sylvester Stallone actually wrote the screenplay for Rocky. He came up with it based on, I believe it was the story of Chuck Wepner, who fought Ali once and knocked him down, but it was, he stepped on his foot and he tripped actually. So, but he got the idea that one guy, not totally unfancied, could take on the world heavyweight champ and made himself into a hero, But so for him, it's not like he faced such opposition in his life. He copied shitloads of DJs and became famous on the backs of other people's work. Rocky was, influenced by
a boxer, for Christ's sake.
Someone who takes right hands to the face and shit. So, hold on.
Since he's 5, doesn't really talk. no.
Go ahead.
Could you picture this ghoul punching meat in a refrigerator?
Imagine Martin Short fighting, Chris Farley or something. That would be.
So would Don Buchwald be Mickey?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Talent there. Nobody
the Irish Jew
sees anything in him. Voice is horrible. I get on the air. I'm awful. I can't catch my breath on the air. I don't know how it was for you the first time you got on the air, but I was nervous.
Everything was tight.
Yeah, tight, and my throat was up here. Yeah, I was.
So there we go with Kermit impression, and he still does sound like Kermit. Like without the compression, you get him most places when he's unprepared. He sounds like Kermit still. He always did.
He has to work very hard without that compression to make his voice sound low.
Right.
And I couldn't talk. And lo and behold, through unusual circumstances, I get to be the #1 radio guy in America. And the road was a rocky road. Every time I had a good idea, every time I thought I was opening up the airwaves and doing something outrageous that was entertaining for these audiences who were trapped in their cars every morning from 6 to 10 in the morning, I thought I was entertaining people, and yet management was very afraid of what I was doing. They were afraid because nobody had ever done it before.
All right. I want to talk about the show.
And he also goes on about how honest he was being. Meanwhile, you never talked about the real truth, why Billy West left. You never talked about stuff. I mean, it's just, anyway, it's all hypocrisy.
The unusual, he basically bypasses cheating, lying, and stealing by saying unusual circumstances to be #1.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
So we'll keep going. Guys, we understand this is biographical fluff that you have to start an interview like this, but still.
What happens on the radio in a little bit later.
Why was I boring you with that story?
No, but I just want to focus on the movie for a second.
Okay.
Was it your idea or Reitman's idea to make the kind of movie that we saw?
It was both of our
The Rocky story, the notion of this guy who starts out unlikely to succeed and succeeds big time.
Well, I wrote the book, Private Parts. Right. And when Hollywood came to me...
Really? I thought maybe.
When I wrote...
Yeah, we don't want to make sure of this the same way. It wasn't Grillo that did it or Judith Regan that put it together. It was him. That was my story. Meanwhile, there's go ahead.
Did you think he was saying that, oh, really, because, duh, of course you wrote the book Private Parts, or because he knows about Ratso?
Oh, sorry, Ratso. I don't know why I said Grillo. Yeah, Ratso. I think in the same way that Howard Stern Comes Again was all transcribed interviews and then his commentary, whatever, for each chapter, each interview right beforehand. I believe Private Parts, the book, was his rants from the show as archived. They just transcribed a bunch of stuff or stuff he'd said on the air and then asked him for a little fill or whatever after the fact. So he actually put a pen to paper ever for Private Parts, the book. And there's nothing really that links the book to the movie except they have the same name. That's it.
Right.
You'd never, if they filmed the book Private Parts, it would have been way funnier. So
the book, though, I never envisioned it being a movie. Was what my point
Not
is.
once.
Never. I would never think that would be made into a movie. I couldn't see how. When I wrote it, I took each chapter and I tried to write it like a magazine piece almost, a little vignette of my life. So for 2 years, when this was first bought by Hollywood, I was smart. I said, you better give me script approval. That's the only way I'll do it because I don't see how you're going to make this into a movie. And sure enough, for 2 years, they couldn't. Ivan wasn't involved yet in the beginning. And the guys who bought the book, real honest guys, trying hard to make a script. Every 2 weeks, they came in with a script. I cost them millions of dollars, and I rejected every script.
These are the guys from New Line?
These are the guys from Rysher. It's called Rysher.
Rysher. Right, okay.
They were trying.
And Charlie knows more than he's letting on because New Line was supposed to do the Fart Man movie, and that fell through because of the so-called merchandising problem. But he wanted to make it R-rated. Supposedly, they wanted to make it PG-13, and so there was. He probably had like a holding deal or something, and then that fell through. So he got some unnecessary money. But anyway.
Why would you also write a biography novel like a magazine vignette? I mean,
I think
do you know what I'm saying?
He had no attention span, so he couldn't long form write a manuscript about his life. The only thing would be like, give him a topic, let him do what he can, talk into a microphone, and someone else was going to transcribe it. That was it. I don't think he wrote down anything. And then, of course, Private Parts was loaded with pictures as well. Not as much as Miss America, but anyway.
It's a difficult book to make into a movie. I would call Ivan Reitman, who is the producer of, he's a director of Ghostbusters, Twins. I mean, I was lucky to be involved with this guy. He was a fan of mine. He says, you know, your book, it's very easy to make this book into a movie. He said, what it's got to be, it's a linear story. It's this Rocky story. It's also the story of you and your wife. He says, as a fan of your radio show, I don't want to see the Howard of today. We can get that for free.
And you ended up, and this is the thing that Ivan didn't understand, or someone didn't understand in the upper echelon of the company. Yes, they could get that story, and they got that story many times about his life. For by that point, again and again and again, they'd heard these. Now in 2020, we're still hearing these fucking stories. But like, can you imagine paying for a ticket and finding out that it's a watered down PG-13, even though it was rated R? It really wasn't that offensive at all, the film.
Right. Why would you want to read the summary of a radio show? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course. And also, what about and why sanitize it for all these fans if trying to get a mass audience when there's clearly no mass audience? And he'll talk about it later. He'll discuss the approval rating and stuff like that and awareness. Go ahead.
If it appealed to us, it would have been way more successful. If it would have appealed to his actual fan base more so than trying to rope in new fans or change their minds about it, I think it would have done incredibly way better because people would have seen it multiple times.
Yes.
And people just digested content differently back then. So if you really liked a movie, like I remember going to see Jurassic Park multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If you really liked something, you would see it more than once back then.
Oh yes, if it was a popcorn type film, and this was not. Obviously, it was like a bad, watered down TV movie, and that was look. Betty Thomas, no offense to her, but she was a TV actress. She was from Second City. She actually was. She did improv as in her early career. Then she was a TV actress, and then she started to get directing gigs, probably for TV and then films. And then they got her again. We talked about this on the Private Parts thing, but she wasn't going to have the power, so much power as to say, no, Ivan, we're not going to have this, and no, we're not. And Ivan probably just didn't want to direct it because he didn't want to deal with Howard on a day-to-day basis because he wasn't really directing that much at that point. So anyway, let's continue.
I want to see the guy at 20 years old. I want to see the guy who couldn't do radio good. He was the bad radio guy. That's who I want to see, the nervous geek. I want to see the guy who was bad with women. I want to meet the woman who would be married to Howard Stern. After all, that's a good question. Who would marry Howard Stern? Who would spend 23 years of their lives with me?
Well, answer that question for me, not what comes out of the movie, but who is Allison? And why do you think she has made these decisions? And what was it about you that made Allison say, this is my guy?
First of all, I could not believe when I met Allison, as I do in the movie, I think we're accurate. Right. I could not believe when I met Allison that she would even be interested in me. I had a very bad self-image. I'm
not a great track record.
No, I'm not a handsome man, I know that, and I was certainly shy and awkward with women. And the idea that this normal, beautiful woman, when I say normal, up until that point, whenever I had dated some real freaky women, let's put it like the kind you date. So
contrast this with like 20 years later when he says, I was banging a model in college.
Freaky women.
Yeah.
It's just that never happened, and...
No. And if you go into the history of Howard Stern, all of his classmates and friends all say the same thing. He barely dated, and when he did, they were, average women. Some of them were not so great, but, there weren't that many to choose from anyway.
Also, anytime Allison is brought up, there's this audible gulping that he does. Yeah, and I also think during the time when this was going on, his marriage was just in a tailspin from all the working and the movie promotion, and he's never home. He's always in the basement if he is, faking working, and jerking off.
That was perfect. I did sign language for it, and Sam picked up on it. He was jerking off to babysitter and stepsister porn, and Ralph was coming in through the doggy door.
Like crying to 9 Inch Nails, using tears as lubrication. I mean, Jesus Christ. And
yeah, well, they were definitely on the outs by this point because we're not going to play it because you can hear it on other clips on YouTube. But the Ralph calling in and explaining about the condoms on the Private Parts trailer that Allison found. So they were well and truly over at this point, and he knows it. And in fact, years later, he did make some kind of admission to Ivan, as saying Ivan was pissed off because you can't divorce your wife before the film comes out. So they were and Grillo probably said it too on some other podcast. They were in marriage hell at that point. So that's why this is so comfortable.
He went to the Cannes Film Festival without her. That was a sore point. And I think he just couldn't even fake it. So he has kind of a script for what he's saying about his marriage.
Yeah.
But the second, we'll see, you kind of get a little bit pressed to it. He's incredibly nervous.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, I've dated all these freaky women and stuff, and suddenly this woman is not only paying attention to me, but wants to spend the rest of her life with me.
Why?
She's professing her love. I think it was because I could make her laugh, and I tried to show that in the movie. Because as my radio fame happened, it meant me revealing more and more of what went on in our sex life.
Now, is this, by the way, Sam, is this the look you were saying where you thought he looked his best? I do too, if that's the case.
I agree. I mean, yes.
As good as he was going to get.
As good as this is as good as it gets, folks.
Okay. You're going to say.
He makes her laugh. He wasn't funny back then. That's what the movie was showing, that he didn't have a good sense of humor, and he didn't have a sophisticated sense of humor. So I don't know how he was making her laugh.
Maybe just by just looking at him.
Revealing the details of her miscarriage. Right. I did all of these things, and they weren't
hilarious.
I know they weren't fair to her. I often fantasize. I go, if my wife had a radio show and revealed everything about our sex lives on the air, would I like that? No, I wouldn't. So I know it was hard on her. And I think people have said for years, why would a woman put up with this guy? But what we try to show in the movie is that we have this genuine affection for one another, and we have a true sense of humor that appeals to one another.
I hate when he fucking says humor. That can't be a New York thing, is it? Humor.
No, I don't.
There's a fucking hard H. Humor. How hard is that? I mean, there's some parts of where my wife is from where instead of HD, for example, they'll say HD, or they'll leave off an H sometimes because there's some Irish roots, as you know. But when I hear the way he says certain things, and I don't know that it's a New York thing or just a stupid fuckhead thing.
I like how we always turn our show into, you say this, now we say this.
Well, I mean,
what do you sound like?
Human. He's like, he spells human with a Y.
He also puts the inflection on things that shouldn't be.
That's
so,
right.
For example, I think I was listening to a show one time and he was saying salamander, and he goes, salamander. Salamander. And I was like, why does he keep saying that? He's enunciating and inflecting the wrong part.
Sabotage. Well, maybe it's like that Will Ferrell in the Lovers sketch on SNL when he goes, join us in the hot tub. But Will Ferrell's actually funny. So
a little dark, and it's a little freaky, but we love each other.
If she was not married to Howard Stern, Allison would be listening to the radio show.
No, I don't think so.
Not for a second.
No, I don't think Allison
It's
would.
not.
I don't think Allison would be a fan of the radio show. No.
Why not?
Because she's not. I just don't think it would be her thing. I can't. I know Allison's sensibilities. I don't think she'd be. First of all, she's more of like sort of a music person in the morning, that kind of thing. I don't think she would. I don't think my parents would listen to my radio show if I wasn't. I mean, they listen to it obsessively, but I know my mother would hate it.
Because
they listen to it. They're on the show. At that point, they were on the show every fucking day, or almost every other fucking day.
Do you want me to reset your neck too? Because they would listen to the show. They love the show. They like the show. They listen to the show. They don't listen to the show.
Right. Oh, there's so much about this. Yeah, there's so much turnaround, and even in this video, he just can't keep a fucking lie straight.
They like it because they want to see what you're going to say about them.
I think they like it. I think at this point they genuinely like it. But the way they got turned on to it is because they know me, you know. But I don't think they would be attracted to it. And I think that's true of the film. That's my marketing problem. If I do have a marketing problem.
Okay, so there he's going. That's a tell. I noticed that one right away. He goes, he admits there's a marketing problem, and then he corrects himself because he knows the perception is he wants it to be, it's successful. But clearly, even back then, pre-internet, or just early days of internet, people could tell box office they wasn't doing well. It was tracking poorly, and it was on its way out.
I also love when he's trying to think ahead of what he's trying to say and think on his feet, and he steps into shit piles constantly.
Every time he's like the coyote stepping into TNT on birdseed, covered in birdseed. Boom, boom, every time. So that's one example. There's many more, folks. We're only 6 minutes in.
The movie's been successful, but I want more than just my fans to see this movie. Yeah. And I think this is a mass appeal movie. I think it's funny. I think it's romantic. And I think it's also something that has inspired people to follow their dreams. This is very funny. I work out at a gym. You can't tell, but I do. And this woman came up to me. She said, I just quit my job here. She worked behind the desk. She said, because I'm a singer and I watched your movie and I'm inspired now to go out and try it. I got to go out and follow my dream.
If you can read that out of the movie, then you've done wonders for a lot of people.
Either that or living unemployed.
Or who are living lives of quiet desperation.
Yeah, I hate performing Howard. This is one of the worst things. Go ahead.
I love how Charlie says this in kind of a snide way. Yeah, if you can get that out of the movie, and he takes a giant gulp of water.
I know that turd was hard to flush down, but let me give it a courtesy flush as well.
But back to this relationship with Allison. It goes too far for her? Not the movie.
There are times.
The radio
yes,
show.
there are times that the radio show goes too far. We never resolve this in the movie.
The miscarriage business.
We don't resolve the fact that
They don't resolve anything in the movie. It's one big whitewash. You never hear him on the on talking down to Gary and Robin and Fred in the movie as he normally would at that point. You never hear him treating Grillo and Stuttering John like shit. You never hear him going after the general manager at the time. You never hear him fucking like wish AIDS on people and the DeBella funeral. None of the things that that fans would remember and loved him for. And
right.
that's it's just a craven betrayal, the whole film, which is why when a lot of people ask about that whole jump the shark, the movie and the movie promotion was definitely, I think, the start of the fall.
I love that he won't get off of Allison. I love that he's not letting him
Charlie
shake that loose. Yeah, Charlie is just not letting this go, and it's fantastic. He doesn't realize, though, what he's doing. I mean, he might get a sense from listening to this that this sounds a little bit scripted. I really want an answer, and that's why he's not letting it go, because he's not feeling he's getting an answer, a true answer, which
absolutely.
is good. It's good journalism.
Oh, yeah. Well, Charlie, and I know, guys, we know with the Me Too thing, and Charlie Rose really was just one more of those entitled assholes, but unfortunately was a wicked interviewer. He really was one of my favorites, along with Dick Cavett and Brian Linehan, who will play a little later up in Canada. And he was a genius at these one-on-one interviews. This was a guy that knew how to do it. Tom Snyder was also really good at it with certain guests. He was excellent, those long-form interviews. Anyway, you're right. Charlie's not fooled for a second, and he knows the shuck and jive. He can hear it. And he knows, because he's probably also heard other interviews with Howard, and he knows, I've heard these fucking talking points. Stop shilling. This is, let's talk. Let's really talk. And so the few moments you see him actually talking about his life, he's clearly uncomfortable. So.
Correct.
He thinks I go too far and I reveal too much of our personal lives. It still bothers her to this day. So we couldn't resolve it in the movie, which I like. I didn't want to sugarcoat anything. But at the same point, I mean, as recently as this week, I've gone home and my wife said, why? Why do you have to tell everything about our sex life? Is nothing private? And I have this compulsion to talk about everything that goes on in my life, as you know.
Bullshit. What about the divorce? What about the impending fucking separation?
Also, I like that he starts smiling right here. It's this snide little boy sex smile.
I'm getting away with something.
Correct. And it's going to fall flat right now. He's not going to let him.
Because back in Detroit, when my station went country, and I realized that I was going to end up being a disc jockey who basically traveled from market to market, that if I went on the air and split open my brain and talked about everything, that it would be a tremendously compelling radio show.
No, he didn't. He didn't fucking realize any of this horse shit. He heard.
Also, he thought he was just going to get away with saying, I can talk about sex and I just talk about everything. And Charlie says, why? It's just a simple retort. But Howard isn't used to not being able to grandstand and filibuster. So when he actually gets a why, he gulped like he's in the middle of the Sahara Desert and he hasn't had water in years.
Right. All of a sudden, he's thrown for a loop. I mean, that's how easily it is to throw him a curve.
See, that's fascinating to me. It would be different, but why did you think splitting open your brain would be a great radio show?
How could you find it, first of all, with a microscope? This is going into shilling, of course.
Anyone who would do that, you have an agenda going on in your head right now. I don't know what that agenda is. Could be, I can't believe that bastard Stern is making more money than me. You know, I'm so much more talented than Stern, and he is making more money.
And this is also like, this is what he does more of these days. Remember that Bill Maher interview he just did to promote the book not too long ago? He went after him for a full 6 minutes before Bill has anything to fucking say, because he won't shut the fuck up.
Well, he realizes right now he is in shark waters for truth and his marriage.
Yep.
He has to get out of this. They're surrounding him. He's on a raft and the sharks are circling. So
and he's
what
surrounded.
does he do? I have to throw an uncomfortable conversation about how you're jealous that I make more money than you.
Right. Yeah, non-issue.
I'm just going to lob this thing. Please go away.
Yes, truth.
Look no further.
Yes, go away. We're not talking about me anymore. This is an interview I'm supposed to give, but I'm going to talk about you instead. So
You're
I don't
jealous
reveal
of my
anything.
money.
Yeah, that's it.
Even me.
No,
I
none
should
of that.
split open my brain. That could be going on in your head.
No,
right
I
now.
think actually what I think is the authenticity is the best possible thing you can do on television, on radio,
Yes.
in the movies.
It's not so much that I open my brain up.
Right.
It's the idea that somebody is opening their brain up for you to experience on air. And when
So right there, he's just admitting, I'm lying. It's not the idea that I'm splitting my brain. It's that somebody is. Well, who?
He said,
if it's
why
not you.
your brain? Why your brain?
Yeah.
'Cause he's using his own verbiage. He's saying, why your brain?
Mhm.
And Howard can't give a good answer. So now he's changing his retort. Well, anybody's.
Yeah. Anybody's, right.
What that means is not just like saying, "Hey, I
crazy
think
eyes.
Woody Allen is a terrible person."
Oh,
Okay, that little exchange, that little shake, everybody, that little bob and weave, that little sister, like, no, you didn't. That whole thing, that was one of his tells. If in case you didn't already know, anytime he's physically moving around like that, he's way uncomfortable. And I don't have to do a FBI training course to know that. Go ahead.
he also throws off the scent by bringing up other controversial people like Woody Allen
Sure.
or OJ, not in this specific one, but I'm saying that if he's really uncomfortable, what he starts doing is, who is worse than me, and how can I throw that body in front of me?
Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about admitting everything that scares you. I'm talking about admitting that you have a small penis for real. I mean, that's an embarrassing thing to admit.
Yeah, but how do I know that's not just radio, and how do I know that's not just...
I know it's not just radio. I am telling the truth. Believe me, Charlie, it's not a pretty sight. Believe me. You know what it's like to pull down your pants and have a woman laugh at you?
No.
Well, of course you don't. Hung like a moose.
Do you?
Have you ever been with a woman? Charlie's not having any of this. I mean, because he's heard this shtick before. Stern's done a million interviews by this point, and Charlie, I'm sure, has seen it even in passing. And if you see two of them, you will hear the penis mention at least once.
You would think that everyone walking around that's male besides Howard is literally hung like an albatross.
Yeah, they're all Lexington Steel.
Right. He literally talks to every guy besides himself, or talks about people's penises like everybody's walking around with giant hogs. It's crazy.
Yes, I do.
Do you?
Yes. Yes. I had a woman break up with me. I dated a little bit before my
this is
wife.
a long time ago.
No, I had a woman break up with me because I wasn't big enough for her.
Oh, man.
I'm telling you the truth.
Oh, come on.
Look at you.
Roll tape. Here it is from Private Parts, the movie. It has grossed, what, so far? 30,
almost $30 million.
Almost $30 million. It's in its third weekend coming up. Here it is.
I feel like such a loser.
Not your fault. It was a lame station.
Yeah, it was my fault. You can't blame a radio station. It's my screw-up.
In what way?
In the way that I got to figure out what I'm going to be. I mean, I don't want to be one of these disc jockeys that runs around the country, looking for work all the time.
I love this Billy Squire wig. With the Billy Squire 1981 in the dark wig that looks so looks so hot on him.
Oh, he delivers lines so poorly. I still don't to this day understand why he had to star in this.
That's a whole other thing that they talk about. And originally was going to be Jeff Goldblum. And Jeff Goldblum is at least an actor. He's an accomplished actor. He would have been a million times better.
I don't want to end up like that. It's so sad. It's so apparent to me now what I should be doing. I should be talking about my personal life. I've got to get intimate. And every time I feel like I shouldn't say something, maybe I should just say it. Just blurt it out, I just got to let things fly. I got to go all the way.
You didn't go all the way before?
No, I mean, no. A lot of times I'm just holding back.
And I guess you should go all the way.
After that, going all the way, finding a place to do it.
Yep.
Everything is just...
Well, that was Washington for me. Washington was my testing ground. I fully realized what it was I had to do on the radio in order to become a hit.
Okay, go ahead.
That is not how his journey to radio success was had. He didn't have this introspective epiphany of, I need to really go all the way.
Right.
It just sort of fell on his lap because he was smart enough to hire funny people.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with his ability to go all the way.
Right. He stumbled across it. He was doing bits. He was doing morning zoo shit, I mean, for the longest time, and now it's really what it became. And now we're going to get into a moment where he's going to talk about I can't find any bad reviews. Well, we found several really good ones, and I'm going to read part of one, so...
And it meant really truly being myself. It meant actually revealing every thought to the audience.
Yeah.
And that took some doing. And as you can see in that scene, my wife went along with me on that. She said, yeah, go do it. But I don't think she fully realized what it all meant.
All right. When you say revealing every thought,
yes,
it's what's in your head, what you're thinking about. It's not, there are things that you don't talk about. You don't talk about how much money you made.
Right.
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 Why not?
Well, because I think that there's
You're going to reveal all.
Well, yeah. I first of all, when you say reveal all, there are thoughts I don't reveal because A, they're boring.
Right.
I mean, don't forget, I'm still entertaining an audience.
Right.
Every thought is, there's a lot of mundane thoughts going. In fact, there's a lot of mundane thoughts
but
going
it's
on.
live.
We know.
And what seems to be happening there is that there's no barrier between the moment the thought comes up and the moment your mouth moves.
Right. And that's the premise that makes it so interesting. I've always found that kind of honesty interesting. In terms of
that kind of honesty, I'm not going to talk about what I make. Go ahead.
Right.
So, yeah.
Do you notice too, which this interview, I keep finding different things coming up, but I noticed that every time he talks about Allison and revealing things that upsets her, he gets a little smile in his voice and a smirk comes across his face. Do you think he kind of at this point, since their marriage is in such dire straits, that he's enjoying kind of sticking it to her a little bit, that he doesn't think she deserves the wealth, that she doesn't, he almost looks satisfied that he hurts her.
Well, we can't know. I mean, we know years later in 2001, 2002, when he starts talking about divorces and how much they cost him, and he can't believe he lost all that money and stuff. It takes him years to admit that he resents her for having taken all that money, even though he was clearly at fault. Whatever he did during that review, to cause the divorce, which, you know, we pretty much theorize what it is. He wanted it so effing silent that no one knows. To this day, there's people there that got to know the whole purpose, like exactly what she got and why she got it. And there's people like myself who theorize she got future earnings because she was with him during the whatever low period of his career. And she might have got a piece of whatever he was making even after the divorce. Maybe not serious stuff, but up until a certain point. So that's why he's so resentful. But at this time, does he know that is he enjoying sticking it to her? No, I don't think so. I think he's got a knife in his stomach saying, I am a shit. But he doesn't care, because if he cared, he wouldn't have fucked around on her. He wouldn't have ignored her all those years, you know, and treated, you know, just been an absentee father. So he's a narcissist. Right. He doesn't give a fuck. And at this point, it's lip service, and it's also a vehicle for him to take off on some bullshit non-issue or non-story and then kill more time in this hour-long interview. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Revealing how much money one makes. It's to me, it was very bizarre, because I've always felt that maybe this comes from my father. My father would never tell me how much money he made.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want my kids to know how much money I had. I think that could be tremendously spoiling for them.
You live in a fucking 10-room mansion or something at the time. I don't remember where it was in Long Island, but he did have like a gated house, and he made money. So whether they know or not, as if they don't know you've got some fucking money on you.
I mean, for Christ's sakes, the one day he hired a massage therapist to come over and massage all of his kids out by the pool. Do you not think they know that they're rich?
Right. This is what an idiot thinks.
I also think it's hard to live on Long Island and have a family and announce to the world how much money you make.
Crazy eyes.
Electrician come
Holy
to the door.
moly.
There's tremendous class jealousy in this country.
Okay, but tell me about it.
He doesn't give a fuck about any of that. It's clearly he also just doesn't want people looking at his life the way it really is. So anyway.
About this. Yeah. If in fact they knew how many millions you make, and if you read enough papers, you find out how much the book made, how much the movie is likely to make, and how much the radio plays, and all that kind of stuff. Right. Do you worry about somehow it changing the image of you as this guy railing against the system, as this guy who's everyman, as this guy who's constantly in a self-deprecatory thing with one hand while he's promoting with the other hand?
I have never worried about
He just said honestly. Okay. You know he's lying, right? Like that's the one of the tells, isn't it? Honestly. And he said that himself.
He starts fidgeting with his hands, which gets progressively worse as this goes on. So anytime you can look at his hands, he never really does this, but all of a sudden he starts toying with his hands and fidgeting with them in such a nervous, obsessive way.
Yep. Yeah, not OCD because Sarno cured that, but obsessive. Yes, ladies and gentlemen.
About image. It's a funny thing.
Hold on, I got to rewind that just a tad because he goes, I never worried about image.
He's constantly in a self-deprecatory thing with one hand while he's promoting with the other hand.
I have never worried about image. It's a funny thing. With me, you can kind of never win. People say, well, do you have an image? As soon as you start worrying about image, then you're screwed.
Look at him. What do you mean you're assuming you start worrying about image? This guy went from brown leather cowboy boots and brown leather pants to getting a stylist and a fucking hair person, a 24-hour hair person on the film.
Yeah, like he just looks. I mean, all he cared about was his image. That is it.
Yeah.
He wouldn't. Why is Ralph there then? If you don't care about image, to dress you like a grungy, then you get to look like a member of NSYNC, like an aging Hagatha from NSYNC.
Well, yeah, and look, the bottom line is, look at him here. I mean, it was like O'Reilly said, every curl is manufactured. He went in there. This is a planned look for him. He's trying to look like, I don't know, still Vlad the Impaler or something with
like
a bad
Jewy
wig.
Fabio.
Oi.
Because there have been times that I've been on the radio and I said, maybe I shouldn't talk about this. Maybe I shouldn't do this because it'll screw up my image. And then I go, do it.
Yeah.
Do it, because that's why people like what you do.
Exactly.
And I've always kind of felt when it comes to image, it's better not to have an image. I mean, yeah, you know, I've got long hair and this, that, but I've always grown my hair long because I like the way I look. It hides my skinny neck and maybe somehow makes my nose look smaller. I don't know.
So here he is saying that he doesn't care about image, but now he's like, oh my God, but I do grow my hair long to hide my skinny neck and my skinny nose.
My Adam's apple. My Adam's apple that looks like a fucking softball. And that by the way, he's just had a nose job, ladies and gentlemen. This is after the movie. He's already had the nose job, so he doesn't have the hook. He still has a big nose, but it's nothing like it was. And so, yeah, you're not concerned about your image. And he also had fat taken out of his neck, the turkey neck.
I agree, that was a smart choice. I mean, why not?
Mm-hmm.
You'll also notice when he starts talking about his image and his appearance and he's uncomfortable, the gay wrist flicks start flying. Just watch the wrist flicks.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry for the interruption, everybody. We had some technical difficulties with Sam's computer, but that was all figured out, I think. And we apologize if you hear any lag in her voice. That's just I'm sure it's just a network problem on one of our ends, but hopefully it's not going to be too obtrusive. So now we continue with our breakdown of the Charlie Rose Howard Stern interview.
Nose looks smaller. I don't know. But, I mean, so there is that sort of conscious image. But I don't worry about the things I say. It's a funny thing. I remember a couple of years ago, I did a pay-per-view special. And the critics were all over me. Oh, it was the most disgusting thing you ever did. It made $40 million in one night. Most disgusting thing you ever did, this and that, the other thing. And they said, Stern's a creep. He should be drummed out of show business. And then I do a radio show. And whatever it is I said over the course of the year, and the FCC fining me $1.7 million, he should be out of show business. So then I make a movie. And the movie gets critical praise, to the point where, you know, I can't even find bad reviews on this.
Okay. Before you get into that, this is where he was quoted saying, I can't even find bad reviews. And I did find a really good one that I'm going to read a part of because I think everybody should read it. Yes, Sam, you wanted to say.
The FCC did not fine him personally. I just would like to make that clear. And I would also wish he made that clear as well, because it makes him this martyr that he is not.
That's right.
He doesn't care that radio stations are being fined.
I don't know if you can read it, but I have the same exact thing. FCCs did not fine him. They fined the station. He never paid a fucking nickel. And for all these years, he was always bragging about how many fines he got. It gave him such ammunition. Anyway, the review is by Jim DeRogatis in the Chicago Reader. And this is part of the... I won't read the whole thing because it's a super long review, but either way, I want people to check this out. In a flattering profile in Rolling Stone, Rich Cohen noted that Stern has joined a select group of people who have seen their stories filmed in their lifetimes, including Jim Thorpe, Jim Carroll, Audie Murphy, and Larry Flint. Of course, Cohen did not point out that the movies about all these people are awful. An autobiography usually has an agenda. If you're Mia Farrow, it's painting Woody Allen as a pedophile. If you're Dick Nixon, it's stressing China over Watergate, and it tends to become more pronounced when the story is simplified for film. In Private Parts, Stern clearly presenting a sanitized version of his story. He had control over every aspect of the film and vetoed more than half a dozen scripts before choosing the one that pleased him in an attempt to reach a whole new level of stardom. So,
It's fantastic.
Yeah, it was one of the best I've ever seen. So this is the last two paragraphs. Just as Letterman wasn't content with the late night audience of college students and insomniacs, Stern wasn't happy with only his, quote, hardcore following of 10 million. They both wanted more. They wanted to be universally loved. To this end, Letterman moved to CBS in an earlier time slot, and Stern made his movie, presenting a kinder, gentler Howard. But in the process, they shattered the illusion that they were outsiders, and they lost their edge. Letterman's newer, nicer show is lame and tired and has slipped to third in the ratings behind The Tonight Show and Nightline. Stern's film is a snooze on par with a rather uninspired TV movie, and while the $15 million that it made at the box office on its opening weekend is a staggering sum, the trade say studio execs are whispering that it fell short of their expectations. 2 decades after its original release, Star Wars took in $36.2 million on its first weekend in the theaters. By week 2, Private Parts was at number 3 with $8.7 million, with Return of the Jedi number 1 at $16.3 million, and Princess Leia never even takes her top off. This is the last little bit, and I'll read and I'll get rid of that. We can go back to it. These facts have not escaped Stern loyalists. I recently logged onto a Stern discussion group on America Online. Jesus, that's the date of this, everybody. Remember, just the beginning of AOL and stuff. And the first 3 Private Parts posts that I came to expressed various degrees of dissatisfaction. A quote, I was expecting a blockbuster and it seemed more like a firecracker. I'll be glad when the hype is gone and Howard can get back to being the Howard we all know and love. Next person, I'm a true fan. I've got audio tapes dating back to '86 and I never missed 1 minute of the show, but a 5-hour-a-day commercial for the movie for 2 months, he turned me off to even seeing it. And the third one said, for the first time since I can remember, I've tuned out the show in the morning. I'm gagging on the suck asses. I definitely will see the movie, but I cannot wait for the hype to be over. I fear, however, that we will never really return to the classic Howard. And he closes it saying, these members of Stern's audience deserve more credit than most of the media. They see through the Private Parts hype. The man who prided himself on opening his head and letting the content spill out has become just what he's always loathed, another celebrity with something to sell. How brilliant is that?
Is such a brilliant review.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah, the review's called Fool for Love by Jim DeRogatis from the Chicago Reader. And it was one of 2 that I found that really nailed it and really knew who Stern was. They were written by fans, clearly.
He seamlessly ties analogies together while whacking him over the head, but not obtrusively. He's not criticizing him so unkind. He's seamlessly crushing him.
He's actually
it's
reviewing the
really
movie.
Great.
He's actually reviewing the movie for what it is, not for what people expected it to be. From reviewers who are not fans and just know him to be, they were told to see it and they may not have liked it, and they say, oh well, look, it has a beginning, a middle, and an ending, and it wasn't Bongo Fiesta, so it was pretty good. So they're basically, the bar was set so low, reviewers were giving him a pass for not being offensive.
Well, doing his job as a journalist, he tied in together the layers of the radio show, the fans, the movie, and celebrity life. So that was a really great review and a perfect, honest one. It's amazing. I need to print that out.
Yeah, that one's one for there's another one, I can't remember, I think it's David Denby, I'm not sure, wrote for a New York magazine, and that one was another, it wasn't quite as negative, but I think the review, they said out of 4 stars, nothing. I think he wrote down worthless. And so these were guys that knew what the film really was. It was just a fucking plug-orama. And I think a lot of fans at that time deliberately refused to see the film because they knew if it was a bomb, he'd stop talking about it. You'd never hear from it again. And since then, when you do hear about it, it's only in passing, like, when I made my movie. And he'll never admit to the fact that it was a failure. He'll never admit it.
He only brings it up when it's to relate to a celebrity about sexuality or dating on set or how you're babied and how it's the greatest thing in the world. But it's never really about how wonderful it did at the box office.
And for those of you who aren't sure if he's lying or not when he says certain things, check out this stutter. I'm going to replay just the last 10 seconds.
You should be drummed out of show business. And then I do a radio show. And whatever it is I said over the course of the year and the FCC fining me $1.7 million, he should be out of show business. So then I make a movie. And the movie gets critical praise to the point where, you know, I can't even find bad reviews on this movie. And the thing is that...
My daughter does date men successfully.
I love when he does that. It's just his 79 IQ just gets tripped up.
She was just in a relationship. I don't even know what they're talking about.
He gets tripped up in his own shoelaces so often. It's funny.
It makes a lot of money. And now some people are coming out and saying, oh, this is horrible. This is terrible. Howard Stern made a good movie. We don't believe any of it. It's terrible. He should have made a raunchy movie. He should have done Butt Bongo Fiesta. In other words, I can't really win. So I think that people have always said my time is over. That's it. Yeah. I'm over. The movie's going to be a bomb. They expected it to be a Pauly Shore movie. They expected it to be a Coneheads movie. It was a movie of substance. It was a movie that was funny, and they don't know what to do with me. I don't know why. I don't know why all the hostility.
What is it?
Okay, now that wasn't quite Patton's monologue, but it doesn't it seem when he gets on a roll like that it really is just nervous anxiety, like
It's verbal gymnastics. So picture if he was a gymnast in the Olympics and he knows he's fucking up his floor routine, but he just keeps on going faster and faster and the music's off pace and his ribbon's falling all over the place and he's just like, but I'm going to keep on tumbling.
I was thinking of like a juggler that started out with 5 balls and now just has 1 and is still throwing it up in the air as if it's some kind of amazing feat. So that's
like nobody's noticing this incredible mess up, and like we can tell you're covering something up.
Yeah.
You think you do?
Well, I think I'm a funny guy. I think that I think I'm good at telling a
Stella
story.
Mander.
He's the worst. He's the worst storyteller on the planet. Oh God.
I'm not a comedian. I'm not a stand-up comic. I always saw myself as a broadcaster.
Now this is at odds with later on in the broadcast where he says, "I think I can act. I see myself as a broadcaster. I think I can act." Which is it?
If you were such a funny guy, why do you need Jackie?
Why do you need writers, first of all? If you're so good on the fly, why do you need a joke writer? Why at some point did you need 2 joke writers? Because people forget, Benji was hired when Jackie was still there as a writer. So he had 2 writers and maybe supposedly Fred writing stuff, but I don't believe Fred wrote that much at all. It was just sound bits and stuff, especially when the days when they had carts. I have a hard time imagining Fred juggling carts and writing stuff to send to him or to give to Jackie.
As a segue, I can't even tell you what's worse in these recent episodes of coronavirus, Howard, where Fred, all you can see is a lesbian elf who looks like he's, on vacation from the workshop and he's sweaty and unshowered and he's just like putting puppets on his hand. And it's just so bad. It's so bad.
We're going to cover that in the breakdown for sure when we get back to it. So,
primarily a radio broadcaster. I'm someone who takes the medium of radio and mixes it up. It's a very conservative medium, particularly when I got into it, and I was able to do things that people hadn't done before. I was able to stop.
You were a conservative broadcaster, shithead. You dumped all the rock and punk off the station that you started with, and then you started playing Carole King, fucking Bread. Yeah, like not even progressive rock. You had like balladeers and folk artists and shit. He did anything the station wanted. He was a company man. Meg Griffin talks about it in the books. They'll all say he was as mainstream as anything back in the day.
But if more on that, if you rewatch our Deconstructed Private Parts episode, Benjamin rails against him. In saying that he is a company man, and he gives great examples.
Oh, big time.
Playing the records, break every rule, not be a good announcer, talk about everything my management had just done to me, and really say whatever was on my mind. And that was refreshing. I remember when I got into radio, the typical radio host was a guy who would host a forum every day. He'd take phone calls and said, okay, abortion. Are you pro or con? I am not going to give my opinion because I don't want to get in the way of the discussion. How boring and dull. So I think I'm kind of a funny guy. Not always funny. Sometimes I'm just doing my thing. I'm being honest.
Today you say grooving.
Oh my God. I'm funny. I'm not funny. I'm kind of honest. I don't know.
I'm not a comedian.
Like,
you want to play that Emily clip again? Just for the him talking about Emily, just to compare it. I can't do it now because I'd have to look for it. But God, that one never gets old. I've listened to that clip maybe 50 times.
I know.
When he
me
responds
too.
to the New York Post, I have to go. We'll maybe just do a walkthrough of that one day.
Whatever it is.
And are willing to go wherever your curiosity takes you. Right. And mostly your curiosity is that of a juvenile, or is it is?
Yeah, I think so.
I knew you wouldn't miss
Most of your curiosity is that of a juvenile. Because I'm about as old as you, and I don't find any of this very intelligent.
Yeah.
Juvenile. I think at times it's juvenile. I think, a guy passing wind through a microphone is funny to me. I find burping funny still. I know I have a juvenile mentality, but there are times that we can be somewhat satiric.
Sure. Oh, for fuck's sake. Now he's Mort Saul. I hate
this. I wish he would have said, do you know what satire is? Give me an example.
Give me an example.
Satiric.
Exactly.
You're Ren and Stimpy. Ren and Stimpy had more satire in them than
Bugs
you.
Bunny had more satire, for fuck's sake. I mean, okay, there were sketches that they tried to do. If anybody wanted an example of his satire, go and watch from the Channel 9 shows the Johnny Carstern spoof that he did with Dan Foreman and I can't remember who else was on. I think Zsa Zsa Gabor was on that. And you won't laugh. We promise you won't laugh. Even if you're not a person if you're a person that's aware of Carson, you're not going to laugh. If you're not aware, and you don't know the reference, which you have to know at this point in time, unless you've been living under a rock your 20 years of your life. It's the laugh. There's no satire. It hits you with the head. It hits you over the head like a sledgehammer. There's no subtlety. There's no wit. When you did get wit, it was usually an aside. He usually had a one-liner that Jackie gave him, or Artie said something that was funny. And that's how you realized over the years, sorry for this little tirade, Sam, but that's how I realized over the years that I was not a fan of him. I was a fan of the show, which means all the people around him, because he was the least interesting element.
Correct. I think sometimes his honest cruelness does back then make me laugh, and that's the only time I would laugh from what he said, because it was so cruel, selfish, and narcissistic that I couldn't believe it, that it made me laugh.
Right, but also you thought at the time that it was just shtick. It was really just for the air. You never thought that, oh, this guy really is such an asshole. This guy really is so cruel to his employees. And that afterwards they all go together, they put their arms around each other, hey, man, let's get a beer kind of thing. No, when it started to become, when you realized it was Hampton's Howie versus the rest of the plebs, that's when that's when people realized, no, this guy really is an asshole. There's no act. This is him.
God, I won't let your wife die penniless.
Jesus.
All of us.
Yeah,
there's a kid in all of us.
Yeah, I mean,
and yours has just stayed longer.
Yeah, right. But you know what? I think that the reason people relate to what I do is that deep down inside, especially guys, there is this sort of 9-year-old sensibility.
Do we view this as Howard Stern performance, the radio show, or we view this as Howard Stern who he is? Is that old question?
No, I think it's Howard Stern who he is. I can't say that. How can that be a performance 4 hours a day if you're unlocking all your internal thoughts? It's a different kind of Howard Stern. When I have enough sense, common sense, to know that when I'm out with my kids and I'm out with my family, that I behave one way. When I'm on the radio, I can probably be the most honest.
Now, this always made me laugh. He talks about being honest, but then now he's admitting to, I'm a different person than when I'm with my family. And this dovetails into another clip we were talking about, the first part of this little broadcast that we're going to clip together so seamlessly to make it seem like it was all together. it was an interview he did with Brian Linehan during the junket with a bunch of other people, interviewers at the same location, and probably up in, I can't remember where, probably everybody was down in New York for the purposes of the premiere. And there's two exchanges where Brian Linehan nails him for bullshit, and I'm going to play both of them right now. So one moment. And for those of you who don't know, Brian Linehan was a Canadian legend. He died kind of a mystery to a lot of people. And Joan Rivers wrote the foreword to his posthumous book that was released in 2000 or 2007 or 2008. He was just he was, look on YouTube, Reelin' in the Years, and he interviewed everybody, like Robert Duvall, fucking Richard Pryor, Jerry Lewis, John Candy. Some of these interviews are incredible. So there are two little bits that I'd like you guys to hear.
Irish name, Toronto, Canada.
There you go. You know, I almost worked in Toronto.
During the interview, just...
Oh, sure, thanks, okay.
Go ahead. The motion picture is Private Parts. The star is Howard Stern. I sat down, I shook hands, and you said, I almost worked in Toronto.
It's true. When I was in Detroit and my station went country, which was a real bad time in my life, I got an offer. Was the station Chum FM? Yeah, that was the station. I was in touch with the program director there, and he said to me, he called me up and he said, I've heard about you. I've heard what you're doing in Detroit.
Crazy
I
Eyes.
think you'd be good here.
Crazy Eyes.
Do I get paid in American money or Canadian money? He said, Canadian money. I said, wow, that's such a major commitment. Wow, that's a whole different world. I was like, my hands were shaking. And I actually thought very seriously about moving there. I thought it would have been a good place for me.
Oh,
but,
big gulp.
Big gulp. And then you just wait.
Sort of my goal was to get to New York, so it seemed like I was getting geographically closer. So that's why I went that way.
Now, Howard, I know
that lie almost killed him.
Hold on.
New York, so it seemed like I was getting geographically closer. So that's why I went that way.
Now, Howard, you know that I know that you found out what the Canadian dollar was worth.
Yes. Yes.
Let's not make...
I ran out of town.
Artistic. You found out the Canadian dollar wasn't worth $1, right?
I found out, you know what, you're absolutely right. I found out, wait a second, this is not such a good way to make a living. No.
So you just wasted a minute of our time bullshitting about what your reasons for not going to Canada and then admitted to it.
Yeah. I love how steady he is with Brian Linehan is when he's looking at him, how he's sitting just so even-keeled, and he's letting him step into the lie so stupidly.
Right.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I would recommend everybody watch it yourselves in your own, in the company, in the privacy of your own home. And really, this next clip that we're going to play is from the same interview. The reason why we don't play it all is because, number one, we don't want to make this too long. But second of all, it's a lot of the same stuff he's saying on Charlie's show. So it's because he's rehearsed so many of these fucking phrases and stories that it's all second nature bullshit. But this one was originally... It's something you could read in a magazine Benjamin reference called The Advocate that he did an interview in '93, and he did similar comments, but here he's actually verbally saying it towards, on camera. So check it out.
What?
Do you accept my telling you to your face that the reason your performance in Private Parts is so good beyond the reality of playing yourself, which is the most difficult role any of us can undertake in our lives?
Yes.
It's like walk that straight line. Yeah. Be yourself. Is that what you've been doing for over 20 years has been an act, it is a performance, and you've proven what a good actor you are. I think you're such a dichotomy that the moment you sit in front of a mic, you're actor's studio. You're more actor's studio than most of the people we talk about in interview about acting. And that's why when you go home, you go to the basement and you don't want to go out. You look at videos.
Well, I disagree with one thing that you said. The acting occurs in my real life when I'm off mic. I know when I'm on mic, that's the real me. I know it. That's the man that is in my head that wants to get out. And I know that right now you're having an internal dialogue in your head. I'm having an internal dialogue. And that's who we really are. And when I get on that mic, I know that's really me. When I go home, when I'm with my boss, whatever it is I'm doing the rest of the day, I feel like I'm a hypocrite and a liar. I feel like I'm not telling the truth. I feel like I'm acting there. So if I am a good actor, I'm acting 20 hours a day. It's 4 hours a day that I'm not. And that is weird to say, and that is a dichotomy. In fact, my
you get the fucking crazy eyes. You get that look he's got on him.
Linehan just realized
He's talking to a fellow gay man.
He's a sociopath. He's a
Yeah.
sociopath too. Like, it's like realizing. I'm floored too as I'm hearing this, even though I've heard it before.
Mm-hmm.
It's very scary to be across from somebody so fake, but so fake on purpose and calculated.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredibly sick.
Yeah.
Living with two different people. And Mary McCormick, who played my wife, said, think about this woman's life. She lives with this one guy. I can go on the air, and I can tell my audience that I pleasure myself at night. I then go home to my wife. My wife hears the radio show, and she says, tell me something. Do you really do this at night? Do you please yourself sexually? I go, no. No, I don't. I'm lying to her. She goes, but I heard you say on the radio. I go, oh, I was lying to my audience. I go on. Now I'm telling the truth to my audience.
Yeah. So that's the example. That it just then it goes into little ass lathery, of course. But the reason why that's why I wanted you guys to see that, because not every interviewer buys into his horse shit when he's trying to peddle it. Charlie didn't really, and Brian certainly would not have, because he was a very, very bright guy. Rest in peace. But you're right. It was I found it so telling.
I love that he's suffering right now at home in his fake life with this lunatic alcoholic brushing cats for her on Instagram.
Yeah.
Thrill. He deserves it. He deserves to brush cats and listen to her awful voice every day of his life till he dies.
It is awful. Yeah.
And unlock everything. I've always hated real life. Real life to me represents locking up your opinions, locking up your thoughts, and behaving a certain way.
So if you and I were having
I'm even behaving a certain way now.
See, yeah, he admits it. He's bullshitting right there. Like he a couple times during this interview, he'll still say, "I'm shilling. This is me. This isn't me. This is movie me. This is theatrical me trying to sell something." But he's not. He doesn't want to. He always had that problem with Jackie. Like he hated being plug. But really, that's what he was doing most of the time when he had something to sell, like this movie. So how is he any different than Jackie?
Or his products.
Yeah,
that were
pay-per-views,
placed.
books, everything. What's the difference? He went for big ticket items. Okay, wonderful. But he's no different than Jackie at that point. So.
And here's the interesting part about this interview versus the other ones, is the other ones let him go with the spiel and the fakeness, and he can take that and meander as far and as wide as he wants to, and nobody stops him. When you do stop him, when you do question or hold on to something, that is when you get the honesty. That is when you get the crazy eyes, the gulping, the I need a drink of water, which we'll see.
Touching his chin, like all these little...
Yeah,
absolutely.
Talking with his hands, touching his face. Yeah.
Any distraction.
I'm behaving a certain way now because I want to appeal to your audience.
Yeah.
So Jim DeRogatis just wrote all about that. We just read you that review, and he's doing the same exact thing. He's performing like a monkey to sell, and no one bought it. No one was buying it. No one did buy it. I mean, sycophants did. Most people. How many people used to call on the show and say Private Parts was awesome? No, it wasn't awesome, guys. Sorry. And this is not subjective. Most people agreed. They did not go to see the movie. And if half of the so-called 10 million listeners paid a $8, $5 ticket, it would have made 50 million easily. It didn't. It barely made 40. So, anyway, I'm sorry if I drive that one home too often, but it really just annoys me every time he brings up fucking Private Parts when he wouldn't shut up about it for a fucking year, and then had the nerve to gouge people with all the different soundtrack covers and
have people get paid in New York City DJs that I'm at a dinner party with to fucking stand in line and fill it out.
Yeah,
Sorry,
well, that
fill it out.
I was amazed actually that one, because if you listen to the history of Howard Stern, folks, you really get an amazing insight into the real deal. But you won't hear it from him. You'll hear it from other people that are around him. And the fact that Bryant Park concert with AC/DC, that they had to computer animate or computer generate extra crowd numbers to make it look fuller because they couldn't get more than 3,000 people. In his heyday, no one wanted to stand there and be part of that movie. That got to tell you something. In 1997, so that buddy who posted on our YouTube channel and said after Miss America, he kind of burned people out on promotion, and so people just got fed up with him. So I think the fans stopped buying it. Anyway.
That's what I know. That's the smart thing about you. I mean, you have the movie, for example, in selling this movie, in making this movie, you want to do what? I mean, who are you, what's the sell?
Here comes the crazy eyes.
Part of Howard Stern that they may not know.
The sell was I wanted to make a funny movie. I wanted the people to see that I was a good actor, that I could make a funny movie, and also have a film career, that I could make other movies. And if the movie made a lot of money, I knew that would afford me, again, script approval and would allow me to do a second film that I was confident in, that I thought was strong. I would like to make other films.
So what's next for you in terms of the movie career? Do you do the sequel to Private Parts, which picks up where you are now?
No. I think that maybe that would be down the road. But if I made a second film, I'd like to play a character. And it's funny, I used to ask Betty Thomas, who was the director, and she did a wonderful job with me. I'd say to her every day when we started shooting, do you think I'm an actor? Do you think I'm good enough to be, Bob the Pirate, in some other film? And she said, I don't know. We gotta see. Which is funny, I got to make a movie without anyone knowing if I can act or not. So every day I would ask her this question. She said, I don't know. The last day we were shooting, she came up to me and said, I'm making my next film with Eddie Murphy. I'd like you to be in it. Now that to me was vindication.
Now hold on. Before we go into that, I'm going to bring up that one thing I've got here that when he's talking about it. This was from 2005. And it details, let's see if I can find it.
All that wonderful job that she thought he should have.
Have you talked to Betty lately?
Nah,
Hold on.
I don't really talk to Betty that much. We talk, I think we're very fond of each other, but...
Well, you stayed in touch for a while there. That love affair was hot and heavy for a while.
Well, we should have done, something together, But,
yeah, what's up?
In one of our former clips, I do believe it was during the deconstruction of Private Parts, Betty Thomas, I think we mentioned this, she revisited Private Parts for a podcast, and she said that they did stay in touch for a while until Beth came into the picture.
Oh, really?
And he used to bring his kids out to visit her in California.
California, yeah.
And then that just all went to shit when Beth came into the picture. That's what she said.
Because Betty was a broad. Like, she's really not an attractive. I mean, I'm not trying to be insulting. Betty was, a kind of a butchy woman. It's not like there would be some kind of fear, like he's going to steal Howard away. But during that, there was that one period where he talks about it a bit. Now and then, that there was Ivan Reitman was trying to get him to do what became Father's Day with Robin Williams and Billy Crystal. It was a huge bomb, and later on Barry Levinson did the one film with Robin Williams called Man of the Year, and that was a bomb as well.
I remember that one.
I didn't see either, and because at that point I would not have gone to see either of those guys, but in a film anyway, not a comedic film, and. But this Dr. Dolittle one made me laugh because he didn't know it was Dr. Dolittle at the time of this interview. He just goes, well, I'm doing a film with Eddie Murphy. And so he's using it as some kind of play. But anyway, here you go.
I don't know what happened. She asked me to be a friggin' gerbil in Eddie Murphy's Dr. Dolittle, the voice of a gerbil. And I said no.
The one that Chris Rock ended up doing.
Or Gary Shandling. No, I think I was a pigeon.
Oh,
and I was like, no offense.
I'd rather be the gerbil.
Yeah, let me be the gerbil and Eddie than the pigeon talking to him.
How appropriate, because he'd love to be that gerbil in Richard Gere's asshole.
We'd like you to be a pelican. Well, I found that funny because it kind of burst his bubble. Basically, he's like, we want your voice. We didn't want you as a fucking actor. And what bothers me, one of the things that makes me so fucking angry listening to this horse shit about having to act as yourself being the most difficult thing you can do. It's difficult because he's not an actor. He has no talent for acting. And everybody in the film is better than him. Like, Robin's better with whatever lines she has, not great. Fred's better, and he has almost no lines, probably up on purpose. And he's, again, the weakest link. He's so he's just a horrible actor. So it's not surprising he didn't get more roles.
She was
Yeah.
saying, hey, yeah. And then about 3 weeks later, Ivan Reitman sat me down in his plush offices and said, here's a script I'd like you to do next. And it was a romantic comedy that he'd like me to star in.
Dream big for me here.
Okay.
What would you like?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I've certainly gone beyond my wildest dreams. Getting to make the movie out of my book would have seemed impossible to me back in the days of Washington. You know, I could never have imagined that.
You were just having fun day by day.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I've ever had fun doing this. I've always sort of I've had a love-hate relationship.
Why not?
Well, because I hate getting up at 4 in the morning. I love being on the radio. Once I'm there and doing it, but the preparation for it kills me.
Fucking tortured man bullshit. He gets driven to work every fucking day. Doesn't live. How many blocks?
I thought that was the only 4 hours you get to be real on the radio. So your oasis. Wouldn't that be the best part of your day?
No, he's at his heart. He's a lazy fuck. That's the truth. He doesn't want to do radio. He doesn't. And later on, and I don't have the clip with me because it's some people may have heard it already on an intro or something I did years ago. But he talks about how the best place to be is on a movie set. Basically, he got treated like a fucking king on a movie, and you don't get that treatment anywhere but at Sirius because they're paying you shitloads of money and it's in your contract. But he said he wanted to be in the womb again. He said he wanted to be back in his mother's pussy. And
I just picture he wants to be like, he just wants to be like a gay vegetable laid out and turned over once in a while by some twinks shoving their cocks in his face all day. That is his ultimate goal.
Picture for any movie buffs out there, picture Jim Carrey as a overdose victim in Dirty Harry's The Deadpool. Just imagine Howard there instead, just vegging out on this sofa on heroin, but with this frozen corpse smile on his face because he's just been catered to and he doesn't have to, or like he's on one of those things they used to lift monarchs, you know, all those bodyguards would lift the caravan and he'd be just carried through the streets. Right. Basically, that's him, you know. So in a movie set, and he did admit, they all admitted, Gary said it years later.
And he did get carried through the streets.
Of course.
He did.
Yeah.
In that one motion, he was lifted up in the chair.
Yeah.
It was with women, of course, because he has to fake that he's heterosexual.
He's heterosexual.
But
comparing, even when I'm watching TV, I'm going, you know, hey, what can I see that I can make fun of? What can I see that I can talk about? And it always feels like it's Sunday night before I'm going to school the next day. Yeah. It always feels like that. I'm constantly preparing and constantly trying to find something to sort of have fun with or come up with the next new thing. So that
the next thing I can rip off, next new thing. Oh, Jesus.
That to me
or
is
praying to God that the other people on the show that you barely pay come up with the next new thing.
Yeah, basically.
Pressure. I'd like to.
What crackhead can I hire on the street and pay them nothing to call in tomorrow? Hopefully. What is there a black midget with some sort of genetic disorder? Please. What else?
Breakfast awaits.
I mean, how many people can I possibly expose?
Yeah,
hopefully,
for nothing.
Next thing.
But I don't think I could ever walk away from radio. I just signed a 5-year deal. I mean,
but you can't walk away because you signed a 5-year deal, or you can't walk away because radio feeds a certain part of you, having that forum every day, which also works well to promote.
Well, no, forget about the promote.
Yeah, forget about the promote, because he knows he's just been busted. Now, he's not being offensive. Charlie's not being antagonistic here. He's being honest about, look, you have a forum to promote, and you have been. He doesn't want to have the association that that's what he's doing. He doesn't want to admit, I am plugging. That's exactly what you're doing.
Right. Why can't you just say, you're right, it works in tandem. I can promote and I can have this radio show that helps me talk about the movie and everything else. And I can sell all day long. You're right. It's a great platform. No, it's not. What are you talking about? That's not what I'm doing.
Right. Not only that, and he touches on it. Some other people have said it before. It feeds his ego basically to still be. What he fears is not being poor. He fears, first of all, being not making money, because that's what he really cares about. But he also fears irrelevance, and he knows he's irrelevant. I think on some level now in 2020, he knows he means nothing to anybody, but he can't face it.
I also think during this time, like I said, his marriage is falling apart.
Yep.
Everything that he is honest about with his marriage and the movie being about a love story, whatever,
Yeah.
is going to crumble any day now, any week now, any second now. That sledgehammer is right behind him, and he knows this.
Mhm.
So he's dealing with being so exposed, lying, knowing that he's going to get caught eventually,
Mhm.
that there is this thing called the internet that will come to bite him in the ass every day of
Mhm.
his life. Hi,
Mhm.
how are you?
Yeah.
And it's going to happen. Maybe he doesn't realize how much and the amount, but he is right now kind of aware of that hot breath on his neck that something's going to happen.
Yeah. It's called
And
failure.
he's not going to be as famous, and he's not going to have as many followers.
That's right. And actually, people may just beg to differ, but he made more money at Sirius the first 5 years. That first contract was massive. But prior to that,
Massively stupid.
well, no, but I mean, he'd be given $100 million budget to fund salaries and everything else. So it wasn't all his money, but he took most of it and left the rest of the staff to fucking deal with crumbs. However,
Right. I know. I meant massively stupid for the company.
oh yes, of course. But he sort of started losing markets in 97, 90 after the Selena thing and after the Columbine comments that he made. He started losing markets. He got the 99. He had that I guess it was the late night show, the one that went head to head with SNL, and didn't
The
it
CBS
started.
show.
Yes, and he started off not doing so well. Started off doing decently, and then went to nothingness because it was just power washed interview segments with celebs, and that so he starts to his power starts to wane at that point. So when he goes to Sirius in 2006, I think he knows that he's reached the top of the mountain on regular radio. He would have still got paid millions of dollars, but he wouldn't have been getting the big money he got at Sirius at all.
If he does get a Netflix thing after all of this, which I hope to Christ, if there is anyone with a brain cell in their head, do not pay this man to be on television. He is a failure. He has zero appeal to anyone on TV.
Yeah, no one's watching.
It's like hiring a closeted scarecrow. Nobody wants to watch that.
No, visually nobody wants to watch him, and now audibly nobody wants to hear him. I did a post recently on our Facebook thing, just illustrating Brian Callen, who was on Mad TV. He was on the Rogan show, Joe Rogan's podcast, doing a 2.5-hour interview, and after one day, it had something like 1.4 million views on YouTube. Now, most people like me, I sometimes don't watch YouTube. I actually just use it for background noise. And after 3 weeks on YouTube, the same full interview with Harry Styles, something like 800,000 hits, not even just barely more than half after 3 weeks. That's how many people gave a fuck about Howard's interview with anybody. So you draw your own conclusions. One of them's got guaranteed 7.5 million subscribers on YouTube. Howard, we'll never know because he doesn't want to release how many subscribers he actually has.
Right. Also, too, why would he keep rotating the same circle jerk of people if he was so popular?
Sure. Wouldn't you go for, I mean, he's had some reasonably big names in the last year or so, like Billie Eilish was a get. Cardi B at one point was a get, even though that was such a cringeworthy interview. He was treating her like she was Bob Dylan. And, but so there's people that do slip through the cracks, but I wonder how much of that is them just doing the rounds and how much of it is, oh, we got to do that show. I think most of the time it's their schedule. They said their agent says, what the hell? He used to be a big name. Let's throw you on there. So that's my opinion.
I'm afraid to walk away from it because I think it fills some sort of need there. I mean, I've wanted to do this since I was 5 years old.
What's the need?
Attention, entertain.
Make people laugh.
Yeah, make people laugh. I can't imagine. I'm afraid to find out what it would be like not to have that show there every day.
Have you ever thought about it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I thought about it long
If somebody would...
I thought about it long and hard before I signed this new contract. I said, you know, I could walk away from it now. It's enough. Maybe I did it enough. And then I said, well, there's still things I want to accomplish. I want to be on in every city in the country. It disturbs me that I'm only on in 35 markets.
Yeah.
It's disturbed me that the show had been a local show for so many years. I always felt it should be a national morning program.
You believe if you did a late night show, you could beat Leno and Letterman?
Oh, I know I could.
Why?
he was parroting that opinion for the last from 93 onwards. He kept doing it in Rolling Stone and Playboy. He kept saying, I could beat all those guys, they're old and tired. He was given shots. He was given a shot.
Yeah, so when Letterman had his Netflix interview show and he comes on with a beard, do you think he should have just rolled this clip?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. We could talk about it. We could talk about it another time. But that was one of the things I wrote down in my notes. Late night bullshit. He can't work. He can't work that work format. He had loads of opportunities. He had the Fox pilots, which we're going to go through at least one episode of those as a walkthrough, just how badly it is, how badly those things came off. He had the E-interview show, which lasted 2 years, and from what I read in the Colford book. It was just him not wanting to interview. He didn't want to do the radio show and then stay later to do more interviews with people that he could have had on his show. So it was just too much work for him. He didn't want to do, when it was just him interviewing.
He would actually have to read and, know who these people are and care.
Well, and if you ever see some of those, which we may do a couple of those as well. There's a few cringeworthy interviews he did, one with Suzanne Vega and one with Grace Slick, and with Moon Zappa. That was a really awful one too. And without any writers, that was him just freestyling, just grooving. They were horrendous. And then the late night show tanked that he had, we just mentioned. So there was scuttlebutt in the early 93 or so, not early 93, but it was 93, when Chevy Chase's show went off the air, and supposedly he was in talks to do a replacement show with Fox again. I don't believe that. I think he press released it. I don't believe it was ever going to happen.
Right, because he said he was going to keep up the old decor of the Chevy Chase show just to stick it to him.
Yeah.
If this Netflix thing goes through, it's just going to be better for us because I will love the wealth of awfulness that will the hits keep on coming.
Picture a magician's hat with like a million rabbits coming out of it. That's the kind of just flowing out of it. They can't stop them. That was what
scarves. It's just going to be scarves.
Shit. So so he's going on about the Fox shows for a bit here.
Because I think that I could be a refreshing voice there. Even my television show, the television show, which is essentially the radio show, film, is their highest rated show. I just feel that I have a confidence. It's the same way I felt I could go into radio as a career, even before I had done it. Same way I felt that I could act in film, even though I hadn't.
Go ahead.
He just said he had no confidence.
Yeah.
When he was talking about, and he was just talking about it with him, saying, weren't you so nervous the first time? I had no idea what I was doing. I had no confidence.
Yeah. So where's this newfound confidence come from? It's all bluster. And there's some point that I'll bring up a little later on in this when we get through to his working on the movie that made me laugh hysterically. So, but yeah, this late night, he's always, we've said it many times, but it's always killed him that he never got the shot to really, really do a late night show. He did, but he didn't. He didn't get he actually didn't have that year to fail. He didn't get the Chevy Chase show. He didn't get the Magic Johnson show. He didn't get the Pat Sajak show. You know what I mean? Why wasn't there a Howard Stern show? Why do you think? How much of it was controversy and how much of it was networks going, he's not going to pull both demographics we want. He's just not going to.
Right.
So, anyway, let's continue.
Go
ahead.
He looks like this. I can't. I can't because it's going to sound super. It's going to sound super anti-Semitic, and I'm not. But he looks like a Jewy Michael Bolton too.
Well, and we love the Jews, by the way.
I do. I have him in my family. My great uncle's married to. He's a Holocaust survivor, so he's probably not going to be thrilled with me. Maybe I don't know. But really,
why don't we substitute that word? Maybe I'll bleep it out like I bleeped out the one word you asked me to in one of the previous podcasts. And I'll put Nebuchadnezzar in there instead.
Nevish. So, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Let's do that instead.
confident
Sorry.
Night television, I would be a refreshing, honest voice that people would have to tune into. I've always felt that way, and I almost a couple of years ago signed a deal with Fox to go at 11:30 at night, and I backed off it because
Lie. He didn't. Now, it's chances are they might have they might have sent out some feelers, and the money wasn't right. Because if you recall, Chevy Chase was paid an enormous amount of money to do that fucking show, and it only lasted 5 episodes.
He also cleared his throat, so
Yeah,
we know
yeah,
he's full of shit.
I think he's full of shit.
I said, well, how am I going to do a radio show? How am I going to do a late night talk show at the same time and just even have a life? Because you barely have a life now. How you going to have?
He doesn't have a life because he avoids his fucking wife and children. Like that I hated. I hated that fucking narrative. I don't have a life now. So why? How could I do that and do the other thing? You could film 5 episodes of a fucking late night show in a day or 2 days and still do your fucking radio show.
Your life is designed exactly the way you want.
Mm-hmm.
Every single facet of it, from when you wake up to what you do and what you have to do, is perfectly designed to make your life just the way you want. There's no reason for him to say this. Oh, I won't find the time. Whatever you want to find the time for, Howard, you do. Whatever you don't, you don't. Your children, never. Your wife, sorry.
That's it.
That would mean you'd never see your family. You'd be burnt out and fried, and it would be awful.
Good father?
I think I'm an okay father. I think I'm good. I think that I spend too much time working and too much time obsessed with career, like I was doing this film all summer. But I think that I think I'm good with my kids. I think my wife's terrific with the kids.
Okay, go ahead. I knew you'd
Let's go through the tells. Crazy eyes, big gulp, pauses, stuttering. Okay, father. I think I got too much time at the career.
And then the little hand across the forehead, like moving the hair.
Moving the hair.
Right, like that, like distraction. What's that? What's the significance of that tell when there's like a facial touch or something with the hand?
Well, they say eye pointing, foot pointing. So you're looking like something's going to save you.
Right.
So maybe when he's gesturing like that, it's a distraction for the other person who's asking him about it. Like maybe he's going to notice me doing something else and we're going to move on.
Okay, so let me just play that one little section back again because.
So here's some lie tells. So we'll
okay, go ahead.
Rewatch. So throat clearing, hard swallow, rapid blinking, blushing, eye pointing, which means like you're looking your eyes any other way besides at the person, head shaking, feet pointing, meaning like looking down at your feet, leaning back. So let's see what he does.
Leaning back, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
When
really?
they ask the question, leaning back.
Ah.
Maybe it bores you with all of this. So let's see if he leans back when he asks him. That
Okay.
would be interesting.
Let's just I just rewind it a little so you can answer.
You barely have a life now. How you going to have a life? That would mean you'd never see your family. You'd be burnt out and fried, and it would be awful.
Good father?
I think I'm an okay father. I think I'm good. I think that I spend too much time working and too much time obsessed with career, like I was doing this film all summer. But I think that I think I'm good with my kids. I think my wife's terrific with the kids.
Well, we've already established how lucky you are to have
I am
Allison.
lucky, yes.
All right, let me go back to the movies. What makes acting difficult?
So we have rapid blinking, eye pointing like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
He also can barely breathe. Do you notice that? He gets
he was winded by the end. It's if like you were to take a breath and then
supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. If you hear the sound of something great,
yeah, or you start to sing and all of a sudden you're like,
yeah,
like that kind of thing. You're choking on it, and he is choking on a lie, I suppose. Essentially, is what he's trying to say. And so this is the soft sell. They get. Let's see if we got the chronology correct. He and Allison officially divorced. Like the ink becomes dry in 1999, I believe.
Right.
That's when they announced it, but they actually we know they were going through hell in 96 most likely, and 97. That's the initial
When he got the
separation.
apartment, it's done.
Yeah, I think so. And then he went to great pains to try to keep some of that quiet, but he couldn't.
Hard for you in terms of coming across as if you belonged in the movie?
Well, I was full of bravado on the air. Before I started filming, I was like, oh, acting's easy, I can do this. Yeah. But inside, I was nervous because it's people say, well, you're going to play yourself. It doesn't make a difference what you're playing. I think most actors are playing themselves. They're just doing it as, they call me whoever. Don't call me Howard, call me Steve. I had to go back and play myself at 20 and, this insecure, nervous guy and everything. And when I first got to the set, they were smart. The first thing they had me do was be a radio guy. We did one of the radio scenes. And suddenly, I turned to Betty that first day, and I'm like, Betty, listen to me. I work spontaneously. That's how I work. Now, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to do this scene once. You understand what I'm going to do? I'm going to do it once. And what do you mean you have one camera? Get 5 cameras. Why do you have one camera? Have 5 cameras because I can't repeat it. Like this I was. And she just shook me. I mean, she sat me down in a chair and said, look, Junior, this is what we got to do. We're making a movie. It's a whole different pace. You're going to have to do things multiple times.
Now, this is my conjecture right here. He goes, I can't work with the script. We know, Howard, you can't work with script because you're too fucking stupid to memorize. That's the reality.
That was in my notes.
Okay.
I can't do this because I can't memorize and read.
I believe that there was no bravado, and he's said this story many times about how he went in and said, we're going to improvise everything, and every time, like he was that creative, he could fucking improvise and make, like you're going to improvise a movie script, you fucking idiot. And I think he was frightened to death once he got on stage, once he was expected to know his lines and to get in there, and he was so wooden and so shitty that he was afraid, that he probably fucking buckled, and he went back, ran to his fucking dressing room, and Betty had to coax him out for it. I'm certain of it. Because when she recounts it in a Variety looking 20 years back or something like that, there's a Variety article where she says he was as timid as a little fucking boy. So there was no, oh, we're going to do this and I'm going to do that. And what are you talking about? If he did do something like that, it would have been out of fear. It would have been out of, histrionics.
So Betty basically exposed the fact that why he didn't do SNL. It's not because he wanted to do all these creative, wonderful things. It's because
he claimed that their writers were going to be shit. They were shit, and he didn't like it. It was, go ahead, please. I want you to finish that. But that for years the narrative was, I didn't want to be part of any lame sketches. We have the audio. You were going to say,
right? It's because he can't perform and can't be an actor, a performer, impromptu sort of comedic genius that he claims that he is. He is not.
No.
So I don't believe for 5 seconds he was saying, I need to be this hilarious person at the drop of a hat whenever I feel like it in order for this to work. No, you can't memorize and read. The end.
You can't memorize, you can't read, you can't ad lib, you can't do anything. Guys like Dice Clay started, a lot of people don't realize this, but Dice really started as an actor. His real career break was getting bits. He was Crazy Larry in Different Strokes. He was in Pretty in Pink. He plays Dice, of course. He's a bouncer in Pretty in Pink. I love that scene. And then he got into Crime Story, which is a huge Michael Mann production around the time Miami Vice was big. And he was good. He was excellent. If anybody's seen Dice in Blue Jasmine, he was wicked. I mean, very powerful,
very good. I saw that.
Yeah, and he's a really good actor, actually. And then his comedy, of course, developed when he started getting more into comedy in the late 80s anyway, and he was excellent at that too, but he was acting. He called himself the Brooklyn Dumbo. That's a guy who was funny and could act. Howard's not funny, and he can't act, and he had to act as himself. So how difficult is it to act as yourself 20 years earlier, unless you've been full of shit for so long, you don't remember what you were like. You don't know what you were like, and you also don't want to psychologically go back to that place because you've made yourself into this different asshole.
I don't care about my image.
Yeah, he doesn't care about his image.
You're going to have to give me the script. I said, I can't memorize a script. I don't work that way.
We know. I can't memorize the script. That's the one honest thing he said. That's the one.
Artie is so much more talented than he is.
I was just thinking that the Alec Baldwin bit when he comes in with the megaphone and he does the Alec Baldwin. You vicious little pig or something like that. I listened to that again. You're right. His cadence, his delivery was flawless. And he said he only read it 2 or 3 times and he memorized pretty much the whole thing. That is a skill.
You know, I love about that, Rand, just on a segue, is he says, I'm going to straighten you out. And that kills me because that's such a thing. I think Alec Baldwin and my father are of similar age, or maybe my dad's older, but he always would say, I'm going to straighten you out. Or like, it was always like, straighten this out. It's such a that thing,
a generational
thing to say. I could never imagine saying to me, listen here, I'm going to straighten you out.
Well, in a Greek household, they would always say "thafas xylo," which really translates to "you're going to eat wood," and that that meant a wooden spoon was coming out. My mom went through a lot of those. So maybe an Italian household, I don't know. You see, there was the strap too, but we didn't get the strap. It was always a wooden spoon.
The wooden spoon was the thing.
I only wonder what that lady at the mall used to think of when my mother would be buying a new spoon every week.
It's awful. I'll make up something different each time. No. Do what's on the script, then give me something different. Right. I would love that.
Lock it in first.
Yeah. And the first 3 days I was awful. I was horrible at it. I was just feeling very confined. It was not what I was used to. I didn't think it was playing to my strengths, and I really wanted to get out of the movie. I mean, in the worst way. I
didn't have everybody kissing my ass and falling all over me, cutting my potatoes, and I could berate them at will.
Yep.
I didn't know what to do. Yeah. I was a god.
Yeah, I had a hard time at not acting like the 9-year-old fucking king baby that I was, and that's the only thing I've ever been good at. So like I said, I think he was wooden. He was probably just fearful of going out there. And if anybody wants to see what we're talking about, go and check out. It's on, I think, NBC websites, or maybe it's on the website for NBC, or it's on YouTube. But he goes on Weekend Update with Norm to promote Private Parts as himself, and it's hysterically unfunny. I don't know what Norm, who I respect so much as a comic, what he thought of Howard to say that was funny, that he would go up that he did anything funny. I still don't understand how he holds him up as some kind of comedy genius.
I think it was the same way that Jay Leno appearance was when he brought the lesbians on for the spankings and the kissing. I think it was the same sort of this is brave and different. Yeah. So it was cheap. It was cheap and easy. Yeah, it was lazy.
Yeah.
And
talk to anybody about this?
Oh yeah, talked to my agent about it. Talked to my wife about it. I said I've made a terrible mistake.
What did Allison say?
See,
I talked to Ivan Reitman about it. And Ivan sat me down and said, "You're carrying a $25 million picture here.
Get your butt back in there.
And do it. Yeah, shape
exactly.
up."
What did Allison say about it? Ivan Reitman said this.
Yeah. No, you're a quick study. You're gonna figure it out. And my agent said the same exact thing, Don Buckwell, and he was very supportive, and so was Allison. So after about 3 or 4 days, I started to think about what I was doing in this film, and I said, "What is it I'm really trying to do? Let's get into this. I know I can do this." And I started to think about it, and I said, let's get into the rhythm of this. Slow it down. Do it a couple of times. Rehearse with the other actors. Really get into it.
He's dumb it down.
Well, he admitted later on that he was a nervous wreck. That's the reason why he couldn't fucking do it, and the fact that he's not talented as an actor. So they had to bring a ping pong table in for him to get rid of his stress. So they had a ping pong table in his dressing room, and he'd be playing ping pong all the time to manic energy.
But it was his eyeball.
Yeah, the anxiety must have been through the roof, and I've often wondered. I know he's admitted to taking like sleeping pills and stuff. I wondered if he was ever on anti-anxiety medication at one point, or if he even takes them now.
I don't know. I mean. I don't know. It's something. He is self-aware though, to the point where even now in his basement during coronavirus, where he has maybe 8,000 listeners watching this on YouTube or something. Yeah. He still puts on sunglasses in his basement with that tumbleweed on his head, hiding behind a microphone. Yeah. Dude, you're almost 70. Nobody cares. I seriously just saw a robin lay an egg on your friggin' head. You got sunglasses on. It almost looks like a caricature of himself if he were playing himself as an old man in a retirement home with dementia, and they're letting him pretend he still has a radio show.
You're right. It's funny. He has become. It's not just literally they're doing a puppet show. He is sort of, the show is a puppet show of itself. You're right.
It's a sketch of what it would be if all of these characters had aged horribly, and this is what it looks like.
It's like a Twilight Zone episode.
Honestly, it really is.
I never thought of it that way, but you're right. And the fact, like, this is the thing I don't understand about the current state of, because of the COVID-19. We're not trying to make light of it, everybody. As a matter of fact, in our last podcast, we cut out a little, not a rant. I suppose it was a little rantish, but we're just saying you guys got to take it seriously because this is no joke. And now everybody knows, or we think most states seem to finally get it after the fact, that why wouldn't you just take off work and tell the company, look, I'll forfeit whatever vacation days I need so I can be back in studio and do it properly because I don't have the gear at home, which I already should. With all the money I have, you'd think he'd have a backup thing at home planned, not just a fucking webcam.
Anthony Cumia is in his basement with a full-on studio with Dave Landau. If it wasn't for Keith the cop running the show, the whole thing would go over fine. But unfortunately, the app is messed up and the website, regardless, they still have proper microphones and ability to do a show that looks professional.
Right.
I
now,
don't
folks,
understand how he has this giant house and it looks
folks,
like an internet show from the 90s. So
it looks like, just imagine Jenny Cam or like as you know, but with an actual mic installed and, you know, people doing, but they don't, that's the thing. They don't even use real mics. They're all using whatever, like headsets. They're using, you know, whatever the mic is, the, you know, integrated mic on the webcam, which, to be fair, we could do this with headsets as we've done before in a pinch. And what we used to do with, the Radio Geek shows, I would use headsets. Sometimes they work well, sometimes they don't. It depends on the reception. Sam and I are using proper mics for this. We are not even, and the mixing is, it's not that hard to get this done, guys. It doesn't cost that much to put together a podcast, but you got to sound right. And for him to go ahead with this lower shit product at home, the way they're doing it is because he doesn't want to give up a fucking vacation day. He'd rather put out shit product and get paid for it for for fewer hours too, than wait until he can go back in the studio. It boggles my mind, but it doesn't really surprise me really because he doesn't care about the show. He stopped caring about the show a long time ago.
I mean, personally, for my own humor, I appreciate, remember the Tales of the Crypt guy who would come out and
little skeleton guy.
He looks like Tales of the Crypt with, you know, Phil Spector's hair.
I think somebody gave me the comment in the last podcast we did about you are the simile queen. So we're going to make you a little tag and call you simile queen. I'm going to have to come up with some on my own and write them in ahead of time. Let's see what we got here. Okay, let's continue on.